My name is Brandy. I'm the owner and artisan behind Brush by Brandy, and this week we're going to make over this beautiful footed buffet. This piece was made by Michael Amini. It's a beautiful line of furniture, and I got this off my local Facebook marketplace. I had this in my inventory for a while, and I got a request for it from a customer in a simple white finish to complement her new construction home. I started off this piece by first removing my hardware and then giving it a good cleaning with Dixie Belle White Lightning Cleaner. Now I'm giving it 2 coats of Dixie Belle Slick Stick, which is a gripping primer. I chose to use the silk line from Dixie Belle on this piece, and that's because it's going to be a nice, clean, crisp finish, and nothing does clean and crisp like the silk line from Dixie Belle. This is a fairly smooth finish on this piece, and I did have the option of going ahead and scuff sanding the entire thing, but I chose to go ahead and use Slick Stick. Slick Stick is going to take this slick finish and give my paint something to bite onto. It helps it adhere to the surface better. Silk is an all-in-one paint, but it does not have a built-in gripping primer, and so this is going to give it exactly what it needs. I do find with the silk line that I tend to use Slick Stick a bit more often just as a precaution. It doesn't adhere the same as the chalk mineral line that we're used to. Slick Stick lays on really easily just like a paint. I'm brushing it on with my Dixie Belle mini brush. A good quality synthetic brush is very important. I use nice long even strokes up and down my furniture piece. This is the base for my paint finish, so anything that happens on this coat will show through in my paint finish. 2 coats are always recommended with Slick Stick to get the full effectiveness of the product. I brush these 2 coats on the entire body of my piece. I'm going to go ahead and tape off on the inside of these doors so I have a nice clean paint line when you open the doors. I usually paint just inside my doors and then on the back of the doors themselves. I find that this gives it a nice finished look. Here's where I am at the end of day 1 with 2 coats of Slick Stick on my piece, a nice perfect base for my paint to go on. The silk line from Dixie Belle is a completely different product than their chalk mineral line, and that's really important to go into when you're doing a product in the silk line. You just need to remember that you're using a completely different formulation of paint, even though it's made by the same company. What that means is when you're using silk, you're going to want to leave behind all of your old chalk mineral paint habits. So number 1 is silk is not as friendly to water as we're used to with the chalk mineral line. I actually use no water with this paint line. What I do instead is I load my brush up a bit more heavily, and I'm using the moisture from the paint itself to elongate my strokes rather than adding water to my surface or to my paint. The reason is that water is not recommended with the silk line. It does have resins in the paint, and this helps it be that all-in-one formula, but it means it doesn't play the same with water. That's why silk does these clean, smooth finishes really well, but it doesn't do blending quite as well. A good quality synthetic brush is really important when you're laying on your silk to get that fully clean, nice, even, smooth finish. Silk is self-leveling, so as long as you give it a reasonably good start, most of your brush strokes will level out with this paint. Silk does have a built-in stain blocker, so if you're worried about bleed through on your paint, that is a step that you can skip as long as you're using silk. It also has a built-in top coat, so it dries to a low matte sheen, and as long as you like that sheen, there's no need to top coat the paint. It is surprisingly wipeable, so if you're finding that you're hesitant in whether or not to seal your silk, I recommend testing it out and really seeing how wipeable it is, and I think that's going to prove to you that you really don't have to seal this paint. The other nice thing about silk, because it has that built-in top coat, I can add waxes without having to seal my paint first. So what I'm going to do with this finish is I'm going to go ahead and add some gray wax details. Gray wax is what really takes this finish over the top. It takes this smooth white base and really gives it some interest. So I'm just using Dixie Belle Grunge Gray Wax from the Best Dang Wax line. Because silk has that built-in top coat, I don't need to seal my paint beforehand. Normally when you're applying dark waxes, especially over white, you want to seal your paint first. But because silk is so wipeable, I can go ahead and apply my wax onto the raw silk paint itself, and it takes beautifully. I start by using a really small artist brush, and I'm just going to outline the details of this piece. Just run my artist brush right around the moldings of my door frame. Once I have my basic outline, this lays a little bit of wax on my surface for me to work with. Then I come back with a slightly larger natural bristle brush, and I'm just going to use a circular motion and smear that wax out from the edges. I make sure and dig my grunge gray wax into the details on this door. It kind of acts like a glaze and actually brings out the moldings. A little bit of wax goes a long way in this case, so all you really need is that little tiny outline and then smudging that onto the white. It's such a clean, crisp base that the smallest bit of wax is all you need to cause a little bit of color variation. Once I've got my grunge gray wax on there and I've smudged it all out along the edges, I'm going to come back with a little bit of Dixie Belle Best Dang wax in black. And I'm going to repeat this process, again using the tiniest bit of wax, smudging it out from the edges, and then coming back with a rag and buffing that out. I end up using very little wax here. My brush is almost clean. It's just that little bit of wax that I'm pulling out from the edges where I created the outline. Except for the artist brush, my brushes themselves have no wax on them. I'm just using them to pull those waxes out from the crevices. I kept doing this all the way around my piece. It is a fairly time-consuming process because I did this all by hand, but it's so worth it. My original idea on this piece was to go ahead and spray on some breakaway glaze, which is also known as powder glaze, but I tried it a couple weeks ago on another piece and I just wasn't happy with how it looked. So doing my waxes like this gives me a look that I'm always 100% happy with. I love the smooth softness that you get from wax. There's really no other product that you can do this look with. I'm known for smooth, even blended finishes, but a lot of times some of my blended finishes are emphasized by wax work. I tend to do a lot of wax work after my paint finishes themselves. I just love how waxes emphasize some of the paint looks that you get. So let's continue all the way around this piece. It's the same process. I'm going to apply the grunge gray wax into the crevices using an artist brush, come back with another small natural bristle brush and just pull it out from the edges, buff it away with a rag, and then do the same thing with the black wax behind it. This piece has a lot of detail, so I don't want to underestimate the amount of time that this took. It really was a fairly time-consuming process. I think I did this over the course of 2 nights to finish the entire piece. I'm going to leave most of this video intact so that you can really see how much time goes into this much wax work. Wax is really a back and forth process. It's putting it on your piece, taking it back off. So you'll notice I put it on a lot and then I come back with my rag and I wipe it off. I'm also going to use a baby wipe in some places, and this gives me a moist wipe that I can wipe away wax in places that I really don't want it. Again, this is where it really comes in handy with how wipeable the silk paint is. I'm able to wipe back that wax even on unsealed paint. Once I have my gray and my black waxes done all around the details of this piece, I came back with Dixie Belle Gilding wax in gold, and I'm just using my finger to apply the gold to the high points on all my details. So this is where I landed at the end of day 3. I've got all my wax work done, my gold gilding wax on, and we're ready for the next step. You can really see what a difference the wax has made to the pure white paint on this piece. It's really where all the detail happens. So even though you're not required to put a top coat on silk, I did decide to go ahead and spray this piece with gator hide. And the reason is I'm sending it home with my customer and I just want them to know that it's going to be easy and super low maintenance. I also gave my hardware a makeover and I sprayed it with a spray paint that has a built-in primer. And once that was dry, I went ahead and came back with my Dixie Belle Gold Gilding Wax again and just hit the top high points with my finger. And it really brought out the detail in this beautiful hardware. You may notice that through some of this video, the top is missing from my piece, and that's because I took this top off and I did a faux marble look using resin. That's in a separate video on my channel. If you search for faux marble resin, that video will come up. Once my hardware is done, my gilding wax will take about 24 hours to dry. It is optional if you want to seal it in a spray of clear coat. Otherwise, I waited 24 hours and put this back on my piece, and this piece is complete. Another small detail I added on this one was to use the lace transfer just inside the doors. It's just a little peak of lace when you open these doors. It's these finishing touches that make all the difference for customers. The colors in my customer's house is white, gray, a little bit of black. It's very classic, some wood tones. So I think this look is just perfect. I'm really thrilled with how exquisite the top came out. The top is absolutely beautiful. And with this classic body, it all just came together really nicely. I wouldn't change a thing on this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go catch that other video on the faux marble resin top. Don't forget to click that subscribe button. You can also find more Brush by Brandy on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube, and on my website at brushbybrandy.com.